Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. Another episode of the Family Movie Time podcast. We got an epic episode for you today. So buckle up your seatbelt. If you're driving, don't look at your phone. Just listen. If you're getting ready for bed, this might be a nice treat for you. All right. We got a movie from the Czech Republic. It's called Kolya. It's from 1996. My special guests are Scott, Tom, and Joe. I've known these fellas for a while. I haven't seen all of you in one place for a while, so I want to thank you very much for being here. And I want to first start talking about the storyline for the film, some background information for the film. Joe actually suggested this movie. So, Joe, I want to give you the mic first, and thank you again for being here.
Okay, excellent. No, happy to be here, and this is so much fun. I did pick this one, and it's not to make everything about me, but I grew up in Prague when I was a kid. My parents were Peace Corps, and I first saw this in theater, and I liked it, and since then I've seen it dozens of times, and I can basically recite it. But preparing for this, I realized that I didn't really know anything about the main actor or the director or the production or much about the context, and I started looking it up, and I found myself going down this crazy rabbit hole because the actor, the main actor, Zdeněk Severák, he wrote it, and then his son directed it. I don't know much about him. I tried to look it up, but most of it is in Czech, and I don't speak Czech, so I'm kind of useless there. But Zdeněk Severák, he was part of this, and this is going, again, a rabbit hole. The first time that I went to revisit Prague as an adult, I stayed at this youth hostel, and I was going to Old Town just to, go check things out on my own. And there was this guy from the hostel. He was like, I'm going there too, come with me. And I was like, okay, and we went. And there was this cool looking theater. It looked like, if you've ever seen a picture of the Cabaret Voltaire in Zurich, like the old Dadaist theater, it looked a lot like that. And I was like, that place looks pretty groovy. Like, what's that about? And it said, it's the Zimmermann Theater. And I was like, what's that about? He's like, well, that's not exactly right. What it is, it's the Institute for Research on Jan Zimmermann. And I was like, well, and I didn't think anything of it. Everything was in Czech. I couldn't understand. So I just, went about my day. And it wasn't until the past few days doing a little bit of research for this that I realized that Jan Zimmermann is actually the sort of countercultural, especially 60s Czech into the 70s Czech phenomenon. And Jan Zimmermann is this fictional character that Zdeněk Severák, he was a big part of setting up that theater, and it still exists today. And Zimmermann, he was this fictional figure. You should look at his Wikipedia if you want to. It's hilarious. It's supposedly he proposed the idea for the Panama Canal. Supposedly he invented the telephone. Supposedly he invented puppetry. And he was also a great criminologist and an engineer and a philosopher. He invented this whole philosophy called externalism, which is the idea that you don't exist. It's only the world that exists. He describes the self as being like a piece of paper with a little hole in it. And what he is the absence. And I just thought it was amazing. And the thing is, it's set in all of the Zimmermann stories. Severák also stars in a biography of Zimmermann that they made in the 70s. And it's pretty much a way, well, because the Soviet Union took Czechoslovakia in 1968. And so, after that, they still had cinema, they still had art and literature and everything. But making fun of the regime was a no-no. So they set it back when it was still Austria-Hungary. So he could, poke at Czech culture and Czech people without making fun of the party. So they could get away with a lot doing it that way. And if you notice in Kolya, they go through the whole film, and he's always worried about being labeled a dissident. Stuff like him not wanting to put up the flags, things like that.
Mhm.
And then I realized, like, oh my God, there's like a whole subtext that I had never even thought of because he actually was a dissident. Which is when I watched it again, I was fascinated and I kept like looking for it, and you can see traces of it everywhere.
I
Yeah,
want
there
to.
And the
there
whole
was
the
no.
whole movie is not like I wouldn't say it's about the Velvet Revolution, but the story doesn't really make a lot of sense without that context.
And the
It's very
film,
much like a novel, something like Buddenbrooks or War and Peace, where yeah, like the story is about like a guy and this kid, but the broader social story is about something much bigger.
so the film begins in 1988 in Soviet-occupied Czechoslovakia,
Yep.
and our main character, he's a middle-aged guy, seems to be dedicated to bachelorhood and the pursuit of women. He's also a concert cellist, struggling to make a living. Basically, plays funerals at the Prague crematoriums. He loses a previous job at the Czech Philharmonic, and he's basically deemed like politically unreliable by the
Yeah.
authorities. So, a
Yeah,
friend
he's not like
offers.
blacklisted exactly, but kind of.
Yeah. So just like again, the basic setup of the storyline, a friend offers him a chance to earn a lot of money through a sham marriage to a Russian woman to enable her to stay in Czechoslovakia. And the woman uses her new citizenship to emigrate to West Germany, where her boyfriend lives. So, due to the circumstances, she leaves behind her 5-year-old son, Kolya, with the Czech musician to look after the child.
Yeah. And I love that scene. Like when social services shows up, they just like drop this kid. He's like, I'm no one. I'm just the stepfather. And they're like, just figure it out.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I was very curious about what this selection was because obviously we're a bunch of film nerds, and I was curious, like leading up that whole first act, it felt very. The film was incredibly charming, and certainly I love this character and the him using his fiddlestick. Was that
Bow.
the right
It's
word?
called a bow.
Faux to like pull
I
up the
saw that
woman's
scene and I was
dress.
terrified in the beginning when he uses his bow to knock the thing off the kettle.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
terrified. Like I played a string instrument in high school, and I remember my parents getting me a bow, and it was like frighteningly expensive. The idea of just using it as a stick was like, oh my, what are you doing?
But using it to pull up the woman's dress, like all the
Yeah,
charming, like he's charming, everything's charming, everything feels very glowy. The aesthetic of the film feels like a mid 1990s, which it is, commercial though. It felt like that kind of glow, like kind of like a glow to everything, and it was very charming. But I didn't necessarily feel like the film was going to be challenging. I felt like it was going to fall into a lot of what you would think of with like a Zemeckis or Spielberg, where yes, you love the movie, but it's not like you feel necessarily challenged on a higher level, kind of way. But and even through that first meeting where he's given the money to take, he meets the wife and he gets the money. I'm still thinking, okay, I mean, it's charming and all, but why this film? And then then as soon as you start to get into how the Czechs are feeling about the Russian occupation and the fact that there's now a Russian child in this man's home and in his
yeah.
life, like then it really started to become clear like how monumental this film was. And yeah, so I don't know if I suppose we go through the second act here before
That's
we
all
get
right.
into, because I have some, I do have before I get into the third act, which I'm a little more critical of actually. But the second act is really fantastic of like taking the kid on the subway, and then he's drawn to the Soviet art on the walls there, and all that type of stuff, and even to the point that that's where he's able to find the kid when he loses him on the subway. That the kid's still drawn towards his homeland, which is also just incredibly fascinating as to why the kid is so at such a young age so drawn to his own culture. When we think of that as kind of an older thing, that we can kind of get stuck in our cultures more so than perhaps we need to.
Tom, I want to let you say something. You got the mic if you want to chime in or if there's something new you want to bring up. Go for it.
Um, well, Uh, I I didn't read anything about the film before seeing it, so um, I didn't really know what kind of film it was going to be uh, until like I kept revising my opinion of what movie it was going to be. At first, I thought it was just going to be sort of like an impressionistic slice of life, like Soviet occupied Czech kind of vibes based movie. Because it was kind of like Scott was saying, there's a lot of attention paid to sort of making everything very beautiful, sort of like a almost like over the top Vermeer sort of look to it. Like I felt like these people didn't live except for at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as far as the way everything looked, and like everybody, was like everything was it was like cluttered, but in a very beautiful sort of old world way, um, and everyone was of course playing cellos and drinking tea, and then and then when the kind of marriage thing happens, I was like, okay. First thing I was like, oh, okay, this is what is this like a maybe like a sort of European screwball like marriage comedy? Like, are they going to end up like I was like, I assume the story will be like somehow they end up actually like liking each other, like it's a classic sort of setup. Um, and I was like, oh, it's a little creepy because he's like super way older than this lady.
Yeah.
Although, pretty quickly I realized that the movie felt like this dude was just like absolutely Casanova material. Like he he ends up there's so many like beautiful looking ladies that end up just like throwing themselves. And when you realize he wrote it,
Yeah. And it's so funny. Like we talked about this before about the funny thing about his son directing it,
yeah,
right? Is like, hey, like, dad wrote this script for himself where he's this lecherous old bachelor. Hey, son, will you direct me in this?
yeah, exactly. He was like, look, I got this
But you have to
great
keep in
movie.
mind, I mean, Severak was, I mean, in the domestic film market, like a serious movie star, like serious cultural figure. Like after the revolution, there were people asking him to run for president after Havel stepped down.
Wow.
Like he was that big of a deal.
And that's, I didn't know not knowing his like his status and not knowing his position as the writer and kind of, I mean, one suspects, sort of creative originator of the film. I didn't really think that much of it at the time, but he certainly, uh, there's a sense that maybe it's like a romantic comedy at that point in the film for me. And then finally she pieces out and the kid's there, and like I was like, okay, it's this movie. So there's several iterations, of what I believed the movie was going to be, and I think in the end, I think it is sort of like multiple movies kind of stacked on top of each other, like a sandwich. Like there's the kind of heartwarming, like you know, parent and child, like sort of a story, like unexpected, you know, parent child relationship. And then there's the sort of light, humorous, sort of like comedy of manners, kind of travelogue, you know, uh, beautiful Czech Republic sort of a vibe. And then there's also like the political, like Scott was saying, political film that's also there. And I, I alternately was interested in different elements of each one. I think the one that was the most surprising to me was the political angle, just simply because I'd never thought about before the Czech Republic's particular position at that time and like what it would have felt like to be interfacing with Russians and the various ways that they interface with Russian culture. Um, and I imagine that there would be a very different way of feeling to watch the movie as a Czech person, and thinking about, especially at the time, because it was filmed, must have been filmed pretty within a pretty like it's not I guess it's very slightly a period piece.
Yeah, it's like it's
yeah.
only right after Velvet Revolution.
Yeah, and actually, I was curious. Towards the end of the film, there's large demonstrations happening that are filmed, and the lead characters are filmed essentially taking part in the demonstrations or being there. Uh, and I was curious whether they like I couldn't imagine that there would be at the point like a film's from '96 or something like that. There's no way there were maybe.
Yeah, no, it was definitely staged, but the way they
Yeah,
pull it off, it kind of looks like one of those things where, what do they say? Film the rodeo.
yeah,
Like if a
like
rodeo happens to be there, just like make a scene at the rodeo.
right, like the Easy Rider Mardi Gras. Yeah, like there was
Yeah,
quality to the.
but no, I mean it was staged. I'm quite sure.
I mean, it must have been. I real, as I was thinking about it, I realized. I mean, it's not like. I mean, this is 8 years or 9 years, or maybe something after the fact. But it was pretty impressive scope of that. In any case,
Yeah, but I mean the thing is, Prague, especially where they did it, that's in Wenceslas Square. It's it's a very old city. I mean, it looks the same.
sure, but it's for a film that, in most of its parts, looks like it could have just been filmed like in your bud's house, like, albeit with very skilled technicians and artisans. Um, but then there are like a couple of moments, like the demonstrations and the Russian soldiers and their military vehicles. You realize they put some effort into executing
Well,
some elements of that.
I mean, and this is where I kind of I'm critical a little bit of the third act because if
Well,
trying to
before we do that, I think we should just talk through the rest of the plot,
okay,
or else
fair
we're
enough.
just jumping around,
Yeah.
right?
Tiger,
So
well,
the
yeah,
kid
I want
shows up,
to
and then what?
hear. Tiger, you do the do the synopsis.
How me do the synopsis?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Um,
You're a very straightforward person.
well, okay. So we've gotten us
By
through.
some metrics.
We have the. I think we've covered most of the first act, right? Musicians, dissident type past, lover of women. Just kind of making ends meet. Gets the opportunity to marry this woman. Gets the woman. They have a marriage. It's a little awkward. They have a wedding. He's a little drunk. He's making jokes about the wedding night and
I love
the
that
whole
scene. They're like,
family.
Mr.
Very
Loca, they don't
appreciative.
understand your jokes. They're terrified.
Yeah, exactly. And then just kind of out of nowhere, she disappears. She's gone to West Germany. He's left with his child, and now he has to deal with taking care of said child. And he's taking him along with him to performances. The woman he had been seeing in the first act is disappointed that he now suddenly has a child. He's trying to explain it was just an arrangement. It's no, she should still come by and visit.
Oh, that's Clara, so the one who
Yes.
sings at funerals. Yeah,
Yes, the one who sings at funerals. But as he's learning to take care of this child, he's growing up himself. Obviously, he's learning to mature, and from going from he goes the exact same shot of reaching instead of reaching for the woman's dress with his what's the word, Joe? Faux
A
Bo.
Bo.
bow.
bow.
It's a technical
Oh,
term.
it's a real
This is not an
summer.
obscure term.
I
Tiger.
played piano. I did not play violin. All right, so he takes his bow and instead of reaching for a woman's dress, he's reaching to tap the boy. The boy is like looking over the edge of
Yeah.
the balcony at the church, and he's tapping the boy. So he's gone from you, and he has to reach past the woman to do so, which is that's where the film starts to for me become really beautiful. That we've gone from woman chasing to a mature father figure type situation. Um, and also along the way, his because he feels like he could just pawn the child off on the aunt, was it aunt or grandmother? It was very a little confused in there,
I
but
guess it was maybe great aunt or something.
yeah, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a real. I don't remember. It's a relative.
Yeah, and the
Elder
woman,
woman relative.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's the woman who helped arrange the marriage for the woman who left, who's a relation of her. So he feels like he could pawn the child back off onto her. She has passed away. So he's trying to figure out how to explain to this child death in a very quick moment. He kind of glazes over it, doesn't really explain it. And
Yeah, he
another
says
great,
she's asleep.
yes, exactly. Another great cinematic moment is to me when they're at the stoplight and it tilts up from the child looking at this man to the sign of pedestrians holding hands crossing the street, and he reaches for
Mm.
our musician's hand, and that's where he really takes on the responsibility of having this child. Along the way, there's another student that comes to visit our musician to take lessons, who's really there for more than music lessons. And
Hmm.
child interrupts. Again, this man's having to deal with a child that's been thrust upon him, and dealing with all of that there. And then I guess this is where I'm not sure where you would divide the second and third acts,
And then
but
she becomes a little bit maternal, right? Because she speaks Russian. so she can actually talk
Yes.
to the kid. The whole time they've been struggling with not being able to communicate.
Well, and then
You know,
Joe, you might be
like
able
they
to
have
clarify
tea,
this.
and he's like, you know, like chai is chai. We're both Slavs. Like, you know what this means.
Yeah. And I mean that's an interesting. So Joe, I mean, I'd be curious, Joe. You might be able to fill in a little bit more on this background, the relation between Czechs and Russians. Like, you know, for me, trying to think of a little more black and white, I'm thinking Eastern Bloc is very, you know, has very friendly enough relations with Russia that it wouldn't have been so
I
like
remember it being
problematic.
very awkward. But I mean, I was there in like the, you know, early 90s, and
Yeah.
Czech people were not exactly cool with like not the Russian language, not with Russian food. I remember going out one time to this Russian restaurant and having borscht for the first time and thinking like I was doing something naughty,
Mm.
you know. And there were like some people that worked at the office, and you know, like they spoke Russian, but like this woman also spoke like 7 languages. It was scary. You know, she could speak like English, German, French, Russian, Czech, Italian, Greek. And it was like, I don't know how you fit all that in your brain. But anyway, but speaking Russian was always kind of taboo,
And again,
because
it's fascinating. It's like,
because the whole ambition of like Czechoslovakia was really not that unlike Yugoslavia. You know, Yugoslavia wanted to be an independent socialist country, you know, where like, you know, you could like vote for a part, like it was still going to be a socialist country, but you'd be able to vote and have some say about the way things went and not just take orders from Moscow. But you know, but then, you know, that's why Yugoslavia and Moscow had beef, and ultimately that's why the USSR just took Czechoslovakia, and it was
but
occupied for many years.
well, actually, so Joe, I would actually be appreciative of like a little mini lesson on that from like the Nazi occupation through the Velvet Revolution,
Well, in
because
that
to
sense,
me,
German was also kind of taboo, you know, because
right,
of course, you know, like when Hitler took the Sudetenland, that's eastern, now at western Czechoslovakia, where
hmm
there actually is like a pretty large German population. But you have to
yeah,
keep in mind that, you know, Czechoslovakia, not to say that it's a fake country, it's not. You know, it does have like its own language and a long history, but it's one of these things that happened after World War One and the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, where you just sort of get these like fake boundaries. And so, like, you know, Germany as a country is kind of a fairly modern construction. So is Czechoslovakia, so is Yugoslavia, so is Hungary. There are people in Hungary that are still obsessed with the idea of a greater Hungary because they had a great deal of territory taken away in the aftermath of the First World War, and they're still like upset about it. But yeah, no, after Soviet occupation, Czechoslovakia was just
well, what's the
they
difference
they didn't
between what
resist
is
really.
so there's the is it, would you call it a revolution in 68? Like it was a full-on revolution, or it was just riots, essentially
Well,
protests
no,
that were put
in
down,
1968, that was the invasion. That's when
right?
the Soviet Union took
I,
Czechoslovakia.
but pre that, I mean, obviously, the Soviets had massive amounts of influence. Correct? Is that, or am I wrong? I'm a little confused as the dividing line on 68.
Well, there was really only a short period when you had an independent Czechoslovakia, and that was under President Masaryk. And you know, they were
What
there. He was
years?
really pushing for democracy, and but the whole country really wasn't stable.
But
I mean,
what
this is
years are we talking about?
immediately after the Second War. The whole thing had been kind of a mess. I mean, like when the Nazis invaded, they had been there was a lot of debate internally about whether or not they would resist, and ultimately they decided not to, because they're like, look, just, you know, the Wehrmacht is crazy. Like a lot of people are gonna die for no good reason, so let's just lay low. Like when I went to go visit Czechoslovakia, I went out to this place. It's called Julova. It's almost to Poland, uh, and I remember being shown all these igloos, these concrete igloos, because they had started to fortify the countryside so that they could resist. And at the last minute, they pulled the plug. And they were like, no, like, if we do this, we're going to lose. And a lot of innocent people are going to die. So, and that was still is a controversial decision. Yeah, but after that, they just dealt with occupation. They just dealt with it. And it wasn't until the Velvet Revolution when, it was clear that things were not really going great in the Soviet Union and that there was a chance that they could push back that they finally did. And you had these massive demonstrations. It wasn't like a violent conflict or whatever. And that's why they call it the Velvet Revolution, because it was basically nonviolent.
And
they would just do fun stuff like spray paint tanks pink.
And is Velvet Revolution after the wall has fallen? Berlin Wall has fallen?
I'm not sure about the exact timeline. I think it's like either contemporaneous or immediately after.
Yeah. And so just, I guess, to bring kind of back to our film. So the film is
it must be, because part of the story is her going to West Berlin.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. 89, like it's November 17th to the 28th of 1989 is like the actual
Velvet Revolution
timeline.
Yeah. And Berlin
Wall.
Dumb.
I should know this.
I mean, Berlin Wall is 89. I just don't remember where in the course of 89 it would have been. So, and just to bring kind of ourselves and the audience back together, like the film was released in 96, presumably produced somewhere in 95, maybe 94, that type of era. The Velvet Revolution, if we're going backwards, is end of 89. Presumably Berlin Wall is before 89, before that. And so as I was watching the film, not necessarily knowing the very specific years of both the release of the film and when the revolution happened, I was trying to figure out where exactly it was not very obvious to me at first where we were in the timeline. And but it becomes apparent as we're watching the film. And as you get to, I don't know, is there any more we want to discuss on Act 2? I don't want to rush you, Joe.
89. It was 89 and 94 technically.
Because that's what starts the whole Eastern Bloc falling, right?
Yeah. So 89 and 94 Berlin Wall. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So back to the film. I want to say the lead character's name, František. Is that how you pronounce it, Joe?
František.
We haven't really said that yet. That's my fault.
František Loka.
Actually, I didn't know it until just now.
Yeah.
Do we?
They meet the kid.
Okay.
They start to bond. He interrupts one of his trysts. That happens.
Yeah.
But then the secret police become involved.
Yep.
So yes.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. I want to hand it off.
You're not. So our man is invited into and be interrogated by the secret police. He has to take the child. He has no one to watch the child, as well as the child does not want to be left with anyone else. He goes in, and basically there's a Czech person, puppet type secret policeman, or not even secret, just policeman interrogating him, trying to be harsh with him. And then not being harsh enough, though, as we cut to somebody listening in another room. There's obviously surveillance in the room, and the true secret police busts in and really puts the screws on him and really pressures him on who set up this marriage, who paid him. And it's fascinating because they seem to feel like he's guilty, and yet they're not just ready to throw him in jail. They want to reach out to and grab more people, right? They want to find out more, and basically they're looking for him to tattle on who set this up, who else that they can round up and arrest, maybe even retrieve this woman back from West Germany. And really, the insidiousness of the occupation really becomes evident throughout this. I mean, if you did not know the history, you're really getting like the understanding of how bad the Russian presence is at this point in the country. But they release him anyway. He's sent back home, and quite honestly, the thread I'm losing a little bit. I feel like the next time I pick him up is he's with his friend, and they're talking about their dissident, hearing more and more about the revolution. Am I correct?
That's another one that I wanted to bring up is like, I think Radio Free Europe is kind of like a silent character.
Yes.
in the whole film, because like it keeps on
Good
coming
point.
on, and there'll be like bad news, and he's like trying to go to bed with Kolya, and he'll just switch it off.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
No, it's
but Radio
fascinating.
Free
Yeah.
Europe was a really big deal in the lead up to the revolution, and like, you know, all across the Eastern Bloc, Radio Free Europe was a really big thing.
And so then I feel like is this
And keep in mind, I brought up Yara Zimmerman. He initially started as a radio show character.
but he was domestic then, right, Joe? Because then he's not a part of Radio Free Europe.
Oh, him? No. Zimmerman, he was part of just a Czech thing. He wasn't part of Radio Free Europe.
Right. And Radio Free Europe it had every language of the Eastern Bloc. I'm sure they were broadcasting in. Yeah.
Yeah, they would do it country by country.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Is there any other thread to pull on narratively before we discuss them showing up to the protests and the revolution?
Well, I would say like
Well, there's the whole episode with him like having meningitis.
I was just going to say the kid gets sick, and that kind of creates, you know, he has to take care of him. So they're kind of bonding around Frontenac taking care of the kid. And that also obviously heightens the drama of the film, because you're like, oh, goodness, is the kid going to survive? You know, and then he has these.
Yeah, and it's visually like very
feverish
impressionistic. It's beautiful.
Dreams, yeah, it was
like
very
with the top,
well done.
the spinning top. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
It's like this
there's a very
communication.
evocative sequence.
The way they communicate, I think it evolves where they figure out how to communicate even though they don't speak the same language, and that I think is also a smaller, you know, kind of a theme throughout the movie.
And he starts to learn Czech by these interrogations, because he keeps on having to go back in to the Inquisitor. And I forget what phrase he learns, but he's like, I remember the quip he has. It's like, yeah, a few more interrogations, you'll be speaking Czech.
And there's another little plot wrinkle in there where the lead character has, when he first gets the child, has like applied to social services to basically take the child away. And eventually the bureaucracy rolls them off that they actually show up to take the boy, and he goes on the lam, like he in order to avoid the child being taken. He like pieces out.
No, I mean, and I remember in that scene, he tries really hard to explain, like, hey, like I was in a bad way. I'm sorry. Like this is all a mistake. Like, can we just like throw that paperwork out? And she's like, no, sorry. You know, like, I'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Then you have that thing where the kid is learning Czech, and it's like chemodan. Yeah, chemodan, which is suitcase.
Oh, and I guess that's actually pretty close to the end of the film now that I think about it, because that's when he's out there listening to the radio with the former musical compatriot.
Yeah, because that's when they
and go run to see together. Him. Yeah.
We skipped over the whole thing with him getting lost on the train. That's actually one of my favorite.
Mentioned sequences. It earlier, right?
Oh, we mentioned it.
We can cover that now, though. Can you?
Well, there's a thing where it's like where they're bonding, where he's taking on more responsibility, right? And so, like, you know, he takes him shopping. He goes to get his portrait taken.
Oh yeah, I like that.
And he buys him a pair of shoes, and you know, they get this pair of shoes, and he's like really excited about it. And they get on the train, and because Franta is, you know, a cad, he of course meets a girl on the train and gets distracted, and he's, you know, chatting up this girl on the train and winds up leaving him on the train, and the train pulls away, and he's like, oh my God, like, and he freaks out, and he spends like the whole day on the train. And I remember watching this being like, because the thing is, a lot of the Prague metro stations all kind of look the same, because this is all old socialist architecture, right? But there's a great one where he's trying to get on an escalator, and this is like a little joke. Yeah. If you've never been to Prague, you might not get it. But the escalators, the metro is built very, very deep. This is an old Cold War thing. It's so you can go down there in the event of like an atom bomb. And so the escalators are really, really steep and really, really fast. even for an adult, they're a little terrifying if you're not used to it. So for a little kid who's lost, it would be it would be horrible. So yeah, that happens. He goes to the train station. There's an announcer. He gets on the microphone, and he tries to speak in Russian badly, just stay on the train. We'll find you. And he winds up finding him, and it's this really sweet moment when he does find him. And again, this is just further development of him as a father figure.
Oh, and
and so then when social services shows up and they're like, we're going to take him away, it's all the more upsetting.
When he takes the kid to see the Russian animated movie in the movie theater.
Oh yeah,
that was a really sweet moment. Again, they're kind of.
Oh yeah, no, there was one. I made a note. 57 and 11 seconds. The framing of that shot is great because it's just them in front of the marquee, and he's trying to walk away. He's like, they're not showing it today. We can't do anything, and he just hunches down and just stubbornly stays there in front. It's a great frame, just visually. I mean,
yeah.
And then
and then they go in. Then he's like, hey, what would it take to put on the show? And he buys 10 tickets or whatever.
Yeah, Scott, you had something. I want to give you the mic.
Well, that's the whole sequence too, when he takes the child to his mother's home, and she's very upset. He's trying to hide the fact that the kid's Russian, even, and because she becomes very upset that he has a Russian child in the house, and essentially it kicks him out. Well, sends him away with the child. And that's also when they see the Russian soldiers. The kid's very fascinated with his homeland soldiers. He's like, "Look, it's our people." He goes out. He's marching with them. The soldiers come to ask to have to wash their hands. They say that the water's off. The boy's very confused. He's like, "Wait, the water is on." He goes on.
He's like, "No, the water's on."
Yeah. And it all of it brings into question to me. Again, perhaps maybe without the history of a Czech person being occupied, it brings in the whole question of borders and cultures and who's where and nature and nurture of this child. He immediately is so drawn to these Russian soldiers, and by the end of the film he's learning to become Czech. Essentially, he's learning to speak Czech. He's kind of changing cultures in a way. At the end, he's not to get too far ahead, but he doesn't want to go back to the mother. Once we talk about that storyline there, he's very much involved with his new father figure and new homeland that he has. And just the immediacy of that our musician lead character's mother doesn't want the soldiers in the house at all, even just to wash hands, not even to provide the most common basic good nature type services to someone that obviously is occupying them.
Yeah, you can't blame her.
Scott, just a technical thing. You're sounding good, but a little bit closer to your mic. If you can move it closer, it sounds a lot better. Thanks.
No problem.
Notes.
I want to move on to the cinematography at some point.
No, I was going to say, to Scott's point though, and not to harp on details, but there's that one scene where he's not wanting to put up the flags in the window because he feels like he's being complicit, or kind of like a like a coward. When he puts them up, he says, "I'm such a coward." And he puts up the Czech flag and the Russian flag. And then when Kolya shows up, he goes and he says, "Krasny," which is funny. It's a language joke because "krasny" in Russian means red. Or I'm sorry, it's the opposite. It means beautiful in Russian, but
would be the opposite of red.
No, it's not the opposite. It's in the one language it means beautiful, in the other it means red.
Oh, okay.
And Loka goes no, ours is krasny, yours is red, like your underpants. But krasny, it's the same word.
Interesting. And that's certainly,
which I thought was kind of weird because I thought it was cherveny, but whatever. That's the joke in the movie. Well,
and then revealing that he tells the young woman around this time that the kid interrupts their trysts. That he's not going to put up the flags. He's not going to fight. That's his way of fighting back, is not putting up a flag. And then he does put up the flag, and when the child, who he puts into a bath alone, which I was, as a father of a child, I don't know, Tom, how you felt about it. Like, leaving a child alone in a bath. He's decently aged for it, but you get a little anxious. I was worried something bad was going to happen to the child. Instead, he interrupts a sexual tryst, which maybe is worse. But the and that's when the flags get revealed, and the woman he kind of reveals to the woman that this man has kind of softened his heart more for this child than for his political causes at that point.
I
Which
think with
he seems
her,
to appreciate.
with her being able to read the kid like stories in Russian before the kid goes to bed, that was another, like, the kid feeling a little bit more stable in his environment. I want to pause there. You brought up, kind of raising children, being a parental figure in a young person's life. Since we do have, as far as I know, two people at least here that have experience with that. What else? What else came to your mind, watching this movie, having the experience of raising kids and being, serving that role in a young person's life? Tom and Scott.
Scott, you want to go first?
I
I
want
mean,
Tom to go first.
I'll go second.
Yeah. I mean, the moment that was the most, I mean, all of it's incredibly touching, and it's where it feels very Spielbergian. I feel like that was even in the Wikipedia write-up of the director, they reference him as the Czech Spielberg.
Whatever that
It
means.
felt very,
really.
whatever that means. I don't know. I don't know if that's about being the most famous filmmaker in your country, or about being, a thin, you know, layered filmmaker. The that I love the shot going up to the crosswalk. That was incredibly touching, because every time your child takes your hands, like, especially right now, I'm going through a phase where my child holds my pinky when she crosses, when we hold hands, but she's starting to outgrow that, and it's starting to get to the point where we're almost doing full hand holds. And so anyway, that's it's all just touching as a father. And what well, the one that really stuck out to me was the kid alone in the bath, pretending he's on a phone, trying to call the grandmother,
Yeah.
saying, "I heard you were asleep. Please wake up. Come to me. Come to me." And trying to communicate, because I have not had that conversation with my child. We have not really gotten, she does not. We're dealing with Halloween right now. She does not understand that skeletons are dead people, ghosts, all that kind of jazz. She's not like dealt with losing somebody to death yet. And so to have to address that with a child is very, like, overwhelming to me right now, but also so natural to see a child, like, I've seen my child go in a corner and play by herself and have conversations about things that are happening in our lives. And so it's just so connects, you know I don't know if there's some grand statement on it, other than it's very relatable, all these little moments here.
Yeah, I agree with that. The things in the film that touched me the most, and I don't, I'm having not seen the film before being a parent. I don't know. I imagine they'd be touching to anybody, but the moments with the child, and in particular, like a couple of memorable moments, like Scott mentioned, and I had forgotten about it until this moment. But him in the bath, kind of working out his issues, and then there's a point in the film that, if I remember one image from the film, it's absolutely this image, which is it's quite early in the relationship, but I think he's helping the child put his shoes on, and the child just reaches out one hand just to stabilize himself, like as you kind of need to do when someone's jamming your feet into shoes, and he just touches the guy's face. And it's like a curious touch. It's not like a gentle caress. It's just like, I wonder what this guy's face feels like, kind of a touch, or just stabilizing myself slightly. But there's a comfort. That's the first time the child shows any kind of comfort with him as a person. I found that moment very powerful. And then there were I think in general, I felt just a strong sense of pathos for the child, and just a sad feeling for the child who was essentially abandoned, and um, and who is in just like an absolutely bizarre circumstance, and has nothing he's familiar with, like no foods he's familiar with, or language, and like is having to cope with this situation in such a I felt so sad for him. And uh and like the scene with the movie, Joe, you mentioned him kind of like just squatting down and like really putting his foot down. That's
Yeah.
maybe like the only point in the entire film where the child is extremely belligerent
Yeah,
about.
like where he really like throws a tantrum.
Yeah, and I that was powerful to me. I was like, he hasn't had anything for himself the entire film. Like he's had to accommodate grown-ups the entire time, just do like go here, do this, sit there, live with this person, live with that person. And that it's like the only time he's like, I just need to have this. Like, and I that was I felt his little pain there. It was a very good child actor in the film.
Yeah.
A very powerful child performance. And there were just a lot of times where I felt sad that the adults in his life weren't doing more for him. And then happy when, anytime when they were.
Tom, could I ask you, since the movie does involve, the kid has a connection to somebody who passes away, his grandmother, right?
Yeah.
Have you had any of those types of conversations with your kids yet, as far as death?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. My children are sort of obsessed with death.
Well, how old are your
How
children
yeah,
now,
yeah,
Tom?
Yes.
how old?
My daughter is 7 and my son is 11.
My God, I'm so old.
I know, right? Well, just think how old I am. But they both of them were extremely interested in death at younger ages, like, and asked a lot of questions about it, and wanted to know a lot. And also, both of them went through periods of being extremely anxious, about the reality, like, like one day you're gonna die. Like, how do you know when that will be? Like, what if it's soon? What if it's, if you go out, and like, what if you are shot? Like, and things like that. And they had a lot of questions, and there were times when they needed a lot of reassurance. My son is now old enough to be fairly, accepting of the reality of it. My daughter still sometimes, will have a moment of suddenly just confronting the unpleasant reality that, um, that we're all going to die. and but uh, but just living in a very, compared to this boy, living in a very comfortable and kind of extremely regular lifestyle, you know um but and it's interesting, you don't really see, I guess that's one thing they don't, unless I'm misremembering, he doesn't. Oh, no, wait, there's one thing we haven't talked about is the child's interesting funeral. The child attends a lot of funerals.
Yeah, yeah, he's
um
at the crematorium.
yeah, and so he puts on his own funeral partway through the film, with a little shoebox and a doll.
Yeah, a little puppet show,
Yeah, and
which I thought was interesting. I mean, another big part of the film is, the kid like throws a tantrum because he wants to go to the cinema, right?
yeah,
He loves to draw. He puts on his own puppet show. Like a lot of it is, and music. He shows up and he's just obsessed with watching this little chamber quartet, play at funerals. A lot of it is just his sort of aesthetic education.
yeah, that's true. But does he ever talk about the death of the great aunt or whatever with the child? I don't actually remember if he does.
No, I don't think they
He
ever
just
talk about
says
it
that she went to
directly,
sleep. That's the
Yeah,
kind
I
of
was always
hinted at that.
waiting for the other
which is a
shoe to
little
drop.
messed up, but
I mean, well, part of,
I'm
kind of like
minding my language, Jeff.
yes, right. With the bathtub, I mean, they portray a person who is a parent that is totally unprepared to be a parent. Like he doesn't actually have like a good set of parenting skills yet.
And I mean,
Although they get better and better as he goes along. But
Are you ever
Yeah.
prepared though to be a parent for you both of
well,
you guys? Is that a fair
that's,
question?
I mean, I think that's again, it's just the beautiful thing of this film is so I had to take a little break in between the first and second act, and I was so again, it was probably right after they had just met. He had just met the new wife. The money had been handed over the table. Yeah, there's a kid, but again, much like Tom, I'm thinking, okay, it's gonna be a rom com. They're gonna learn to love each other. Blah blah blah. I'm in the middle of a break and I pull up the Wikipedia page because I'm again curious about what year it comes
Yeah.
out,
This
where
is
it is
when
in the
Kiger took off
revolution.
his shoes. This is
Yes.
when Kiger gets bored with a
I don't
movie.
need to
He
stop
takes
the
off
movie
his
to take off
shoes.
my shoes. They just pop off automatically. But they
I know you've seen this, Tom. I know you've seen this.
oh, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, it's a classic.
yeah, I mean it sets the mood rather than it's like turning on lighting a candle. The but no, again, I'm thinking that the film's about going to be romantic, rom-com type of situation, and I pull up the Wikipedia page trying to figure out what year the film came out in relation to the revolution, and the poster comes up, and it's our man and two hands over the eyes. And I'm looking on a phone very briefly before I put the film back on, and I'm thinking those hands are going to be the new wife's hands. And I'm thinking it was a very evocative image actually, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be very fascinating, like how she's going to open his eyes to new things. Closer look at the both scene in the film. Eventually, you see the boy on his shoulders, and it's his hands that are over the eyes, and that is really what happens with a child. Being a parent of a child is like witnessing the world again through young eyes. Um, and that's essentially what's happening in this film.
Yeah. No, that happens in the sequence when they it's in the same one when they go to Petrin. It's one of the places that I recognize. Petrin it's on the other side of the river from Old Town. It's this sort of a fake like little mini Eiffel Tower. It's this big observation tower you can go up.
Oh,
And
right.
that's exactly what people do there. I mean, it's a park, you go there with families and you can, look at all of Old Town. It's a very beautiful thing. Like the structure itself is just kind of a big metal thing. But it's a cool place to go up there and look at stuff. And if it's a nice day, and it's free, it's a cool place. Yeah, but they go there on their field trip.
That's what parents learn to do as well, is find free activities.
Yeah, especially if you're him because he's broke.
Yeah. Well, can we dive into this third act now that I'm so desperate to get to and criticize?
I think it's a good
Yeah,
time.
I think so. I mean, I would say second act ends with him getting sick.
A well crafted film, but definitely not a huge production value film. And so they're joining just masses of people on the streets, and you have to presume that they're shooting this, at the same time as something, whether it's the revolution or another, event that people would be out there. And so, I was, and
I assume that must have just been like a
no,
huge
there's
cattle
no
call.
way that number of people, even like by like Hollywood standards, that was beyond. They had to have been filming a real event. I presume it was. My presumption is either they used footage from the revolution, which I kind of doubt because there was very graceful crane movements, or they brought a film crane to shoot a whatever Patriot Day would be in the new Czech Republic in a later year, 92, 93, whatever, and then they incorporate their actors into that. I mean, the actors are shot in tight enough shots that you could have just recreated that portion. But again, the movie shots, a crane movement over that crowd had to have either been the real revolution or they shoot a
I
Patriot Day.
agree. I mean, it can't have been the actual
No, I
revolution,
don't.
and I don't think it was historical
Right.
footage. But I think you're right. There must have been something going on.
But what it felt like was it was the real revolution because it felt like they were wrapping this film up as fast as possible. It was almost like they were filming this thing in real time. The revolution happens. It's like, oh, well, we got to end this movie. This is a natural ending for our movie, and it felt so rushed that they get to the revolution. They get it. They go meet the mother. They hand off the kid. He goes and does a musical performance, and you cut to Clara, and she's pregnant and out. And I felt like it just wrapped up so fast and so tight that it kind of really from that dream sequence of the kid getting sick on, everything moves at such a pace that turned me off a little bit to the film. I mean, the overall structure of the story and the fact that they get through the revolution and he reconnects with this lover who then he can become pregnant with and have a real child with. When you look at it as a whole and you step away from it, you're like, okay, yes, that's a very nice ending to this film. But the experience of it felt very rushed and haphazard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we want to move into uh, opinion at this point. Jeff, is that like so far? I feel like we've been
Did we cover the
relatively.
third act? Did we cover the?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite brief, as Scott mentioned. I think that pretty much in
I
terms of
think we could move into the more specific commentary. Yeah.
um, Scott, what was your overall opinion of the film? Like, if you had to crystallize it.
I would I had to crystallize it. I don't
And
know.
you do have
I'm
to
just coming
crystallize.
off, and I did actually watch that. I only finished it last night, so I'm still a little upset about that haphazard ending of it. But I think the more time I have away from the film, overall, I very much enjoyed it, and it very much satisfied, all the parental touching moments and experiences, and also just the political commentary of having to deal with being an occupied people. Very fascinating, and yeah, as I get more and more space from it, I will enjoy it more and more.
Scott, could I ask you while you're on the topic, if you were one of the writers of the film, how would you have ended the film?
Oh
Ooh.
boy, the Monday morning quarterbacking. I don't know. It just all felt very convenient at that ending point. So the more again, all those things. I perhaps just the sickness. If you took out that level of the sickness, I felt like we very are understood that this man cared for this child and loved him, and more kind of that brooding fact of like the mother coming back. Like, is if there could have been more of could have been more daunting. It felt very quick again that he had to meet the woman and hand him over. The scene was handled well, but you could have actually had more stakes raised over the course of the fact that he's going to eventually lose this child back to the mother. And of course, he's naturally going to want it to. It makes sense to go back to the mother, but the child, but he's grown so attached. And again, the dream sequence felt very incredible. It's gorgeous visually and very fascinating and interesting and fun.
And the
The
music is cool.
But it felt incredibly out of place in this film. I felt it was like it did not. There was not. It was not even a graceful transition to it. It just felt like one scene we're fine. Suddenly the kid's sick, and we're in this very surreal visual language.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually had a
But I mean,
similar.
sorry.
Oh, that's right. I had a similar perspective of of noting that it was like the vocabulary of the way that scene was shot was very different. And I didn't. I thought, well, there's basically 2 points in the movie. I felt like where the movie was from the child's perspective instead of from, well, what's his face's perspective. And
Pronta.
yeah, that guy is, and that and I noticed them when they happened on the train. Is one where the movie is essentially from the child's perspective. Even before when there's sequences that are about the child, like he meets the Russian soldiers, for example, like it's all shot basically like from the windows of the Czech house. Like it's very much from the lead's perspective. And then but the train sequence, like he goes and then it cuts back and forth between the child's experience and the semi-dad's experience, and then in the in the sickness sequence, I I assume that the kind of impressionistic sort of um, kind of Vorkapich vibes there were kind of meant to represent like the child's experience of being ill. And I didn't mind it necessarily. It was very different, and it was like it was the filmmakers tipped their hand a little bit, right? Like, at least from my perspective, like, okay, I see what you're doing here, having a little fun with it. It was if the artifice was there, right? But but it was neat. I liked it in and of itself. But then at the ending, um, it's kind of it's a one off though, right? Like it kind of goes back to his perspective after that.
The lighting, Joe, you have something? I was going to say something about the cinematography, but go ahead. Go ahead.
No, just following on your point, I just can't say that I agree with Kiger on this one. I don't think the fever dream is out of context at all. You know, like there's a scene early on. It's well not early on. It's kind of in the middle. There's one. I took a note. It's 51 minutes and 41 seconds. But there's a scene where light is coming in through the window. I think it's when they've gone to mom's house, and he's like discovering the marionettes, and he's showing him the marionettes. And there's this thing of light like this.
Ooh,
what's this?
This is
the movie.
Oh, I didn't know this was an option.
Jeff mentioned it.
If you had arrived on time,
but he's trying to hold light in his hands like this, which is actually very Svenkmeyer. You know, talking about visual language, it's a very Svenkmeyer thing. So then when you get to the fever dream, that's like even more Svenkmeyer. It's like it's kind of already set up.
And I may be contradicting myself, but there's also this scene where they're in the bed, very in this same sequence here, towards the end of it. They're in the bed as the headlights of the cars are going by. Not to contradict myself, but that was also a little more impressionistic. Like,
well, I don't think that contradicts your point. I think it's like,
I don't think it does either.
Especially in the first half of the film, there's a lot of like detail elements where like little aesthetic details, even like the shot we're seeing right now. Like
I also always love scenes where people eat in movies. I don't know why, but anytime there's a thing where people eat in films, I think it just really humanizes the character.
Tom, I liked how, real quick, I like how you said, I think it was you earlier, Tom, or maybe it was Scott, like everything in the movie looks like they filmed it at like 5 p.m. or Magic Hour.
Yes. That was my pithy remark.
Yeah, this is the light. But well, yeah, and you're seeing it right here. I mean, it's gorgeous lighting. It's like a very pretty life they're living. I mean, everything around them is very realistic and dusty, as Tom also mentioned that. Then you see it even in action here. But it's a very gorgeous filmmaking.
Yeah, and I think it's, I don't know, I think it's honestly, like, I sort of have mixed feelings about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a very, like, there's...
is it too pretty?
I don't think it's too pretty, but I think it's there are times when it tries to have its cake and eat it too. Like part of it is almost like I feel like the filmmakers, and I could be wrong, but I feel like the filmmakers just really love the Czech Republic, and like they love these places and they love these people and ideas, and there's like a warmth and like a a sense of like wanting to capture the kind of the beauty of the culture, and then and so I think it makes it hard. I don't think it's like I think that they experience a challenge that anyone would experience when they then have to portray things that are kind of real and sad, and I think it's part of what makes the ending difficult for them, and like why they kind of blaze through it is because things that are like that, like an airport and two people departing forever, like it would be totally undercutting it to try to make it like beautiful, like aesthetically beautiful in the same way. Like, and so I think they don't have a perfect solution for handling that, because there's such a, like, most of the movie, like you could just turn it on, like, and just kind of let it wash over you in a sort of days of heaven kind of way, where you're just kind of these sort of small chambers and light coming through the windows like they are here, and people, like Joe said, like having a meal or playing with an old puppet, or a bowstring, like going across like a cello. Like there's a lot of kind of you can almost cut the whole story out and still enjoy the film just as a sort of like aesthetic kind of like visual painting.
Yeah, I mean, like even this scene here, this is kind of sad. It's a bummer. because it's her figuring out that it's a lie,
It
that the
is,
kid
but
is Russian, and the end is very sad.
oh yeah, I mean,
I
I
mean,
think it's
like visually, it is, maybe it's sort of, it keeps the gloves on. Like, it is very pretty,
Well, it's
but
yeah.
also a little
but
on the
narratively,
nose.
like a lot of it is very sad.
I
Well,
mean,
I think
even
it's
in the
a lot of it's very
sequence here,
melancholy or bittersweet, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it gets to feel a little on the nose. Even the sequence right here is the boy was looking at the tanks coming in, the trucks coming in, and the photo of the father falls over, and we know he had a history of hating Russians. It's the Russians coming in, and the photo falls, and it's a little okay. It's a little on the nose,
Well, they do.
perhaps.
They do. The film doesn't shy away from being very like overt in its symbolism.
Yeah.
And like, and I don't. It is what it is. Like it's kind of it has a literary quality in that way that like they're pretty like there's his friend character who kind of sets them up in the marriage in the first place. Like when like he like they're having some conversation. He's like, well, it's like kind of like ironic that like I'm a gravedigger, even though like my house is like full of wife and children. And I was like, you could have just, he didn't have to say it, but they
I
go
mean,
for it.
that part is kind of hilarious. It's like, I'm going to leave you with the grave digger.
Yeah, yeah, and also the gravediggers, his household is such a warm and like inviting place. Um, and in general, I guess there's like kind of a funerary, like a grave theme, because he also paints gravestones, like, or he repaints like the gold letters from the
Yeah.
gravestones. I guess there's kind of an intentional, like, like first half of the movie is very funerary and like lots of grave imagery, and then in the second half of the movie, when the child is there, like you know, there's a different kind of characteristic. Like it doesn't linger as much on those kind of grave scenes.
For the sake of stakes and drama, does František suffer enough in the movie, or is there enough of a change in him by the end of the film? I would say maybe not. He could have maybe had some more close calls, or something maybe with his health, perhaps.
I don't know. I don't think he needed. Like I actually, when I like the movie best is at its lowest stakes. I like the low stakes. Like I like the day to day scenes, like the little moments best. And I don't. I was glad that they restrained themselves from juicing it. To the the like the lost on. Like I really enjoyed that when he gets lost on the train, he gets found again like
Yeah.
relatively quickly and like without he doesn't get like his toes stuck in the escalator or like accosted by some Czech gang of youths or something like that. It's a pretty. They don't play the drama. Oh, here's your shot, Joe.
Yeah.
They don't.
I love that one.
I was glad they didn't juice the drama too hard, and like I said, I think that's kind of like in order to not juice the drama, they blaze through the ending. I think that I would say I like the film, and I especially like the the moments like kind of once the story has started with the child, like once the kind of development of that relationship, like the way that's done and the different moments of that relationship, um, and then I also like the way that that is interwoven with like the political attitudes. I think those two things go together well, like two disparate things that end up connecting, and like even the fact that this cartoon that he's watching is Russian, and like um, I was so excited to see what the animation is doing. Russian animation is pretty cool from that period, but it didn't end up being.
I remember watching it and thinking that it was hideous.
It is, as it turns out. They watched like it's like a Hanna-Barbera of Russia. Like it's a very
Yeah.
ugly cartoon, but there are cool pieces of Soviet animation that maybe they couldn't afford the rights to or something like that.
Like, look,
But
it's just awful.
it is quite bad, but he was enjoying it.
Didn't want to. It was running up. We're running up the prices on the rights to their.
I don't. That would be such an interesting thing to know. How do you license?
Moss film.
Yeah, like film that was
Product.
created by the Soviets. I assume that it's like owned by the Soviet government still, maybe, or the Russian government. I mean,
The Russian government.
yeah, or
I mean,
maybe
a
it's
lot of
all.
things were sold off after the.
Oh, and his
collapse,
car.
right?
We have to talk
Yeah.
about his car.
True.
I do
He
like
buys a
it.
Trabant,
That's part of the story, yeah.
which is a big
Oh.
deal.
This shot is a great example. This is
It's one of the most horrible cars in the whole world, but getting one was like a really big deal.
What? Who? That was a Russian-made car.
Yeah.
Conversation to this.
Yes. Yeah. You know, my instinct is always to dive in and be like, it was pretty good, but here's what I didn't like. But you know, I like that. But I think for me, because that relationship between him and the boy is like, and scenes like the one we're seeing right now on screen, like very beautifully shot little scenes like this, are so much so much the thing I enjoy. I was a little sad that at the end he didn't have their departure from each other. It was a nice moment, but um, it wasn't. I wanted a little more. I don't know. I wanted a little more from it, and I also thought, you know, they have. Oh, there's so many things on screen that I want to talk about. They have.
Yeah, no, this is a great scene.
Yes,
she talks to him.
And I honestly believe that him tripping as he's doing right here was not scripted. I think he legitimately trips somehow. The way it looks.
I agree.
And I respect them for keeping it in there. It added a good
Joe, did a lot of people die in the revolution in 68? Because I'm just wondering if that's why all these young women have like missing father figures, and that's why they're all attracted to this older man.
Man, you don't need to look any further than the credits to know why this dude has cast himself.
He's as the kids say, he's pulling strong.
He's quite the horn dog.
He's aura farming.
Fair, right? He's quite the horn dog.
Yeah,
he is. I mean,
yeah, he's been taking his vitamins for sure.
Yeah, but he has a very good mixture of gray and black in that beard that is very attractive. But I you know, it is very striking.
In terms of people dying in the revolution, I'll admit I'm not sure. People did die. But in terms of numbers, I couldn't tell you.
Whether it was enough to move the needle for this old guy, it's hard to know.
Joe, I'm going to show one of your favorite scenes. Here we go.
This is purely a cultural thing that if you've not been to Prague, maybe you've never experienced this. But some of the elevators there are terrifying because it's not like an American elevator. You can see it. You see how it's this like rolling platform, which just continuously goes up and down, and you just need to jump off at the right time.
Whoa.
And if you mess it up, it'll just eat you.
I noted that scene and this scene in general is one where they do have some shots like the camera, like this one, the camera pops down low and the child's
it's like it's from his level.
Yeah. And the camera is like literally looking up at people a lot of times, and you know, they take a little moment to jump into his perspective.
Um,
but the one thing I wanted to finish out from my statement earlier was because at the very end they go for like the super happy ending where he ends up with a nice lady and she's pregnant, and so it's like, don't worry, like he may have parted from Kolya, but he has a new child. I did feel like a little like I was like, I mean, it made me happy when I saw it, but I was also like I felt like his actual relationship with the individual child was something that, you know, I was like, I wonder maybe they could have I wish that maybe he had called him on the phone at the end or something like that. Like he had kept the photograph, which was something, but you know, I didn't want the film to end feeling like he had replaced Kolya, you know.
Yeah, right. No, there is something a little bit gross, and that has crossed my mind before. It's kind of like at the end of Dr. Zhivago, when Dr. Zhivago gets back to his house and he's like, here is my new wife and my new family.
Yeah, it gives a man, and then you're right, Scott. The scale of the scene is just huge.
Yeah, but even by Hollywood standards, it's impossible. I mean, yeah, but you can tell it's obviously a very specific movie crane over the widest shots.
Yeah,
I did love that they had the like the interrogating police officers, like they catch sight of them. That was a nice.
As convenient as it was. Yeah, again, that's the thing is that some of these things you can feel a little critical of how much convenient it is, but at the same time, it is a nice, touching moment that even those guys, join.
And it added this element of like Czech patriotism, which is kind of throughout the film, where it's like, even the Czech bad guys, like everybody was kind of waiting for this to happen or hoping
Yeah.
this would happen. And it adds, like, looking back, you think of the kind of the more like the bad cop interrogator as being such a jerk. And
Mhm.
then like in that moment you're like, he doesn't necessarily like the things he has to do either, you know?
I did pull up an open. I've made this an open book exam, and I have time for this now.
Scott.
Yeah,
Failed. Even
this
even open book, I
I
failed.
know, right?
this terrified me.
Just like,
Using
don't
your
screw
bow
up.
like that. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I wonder how many times they had to do
Maybe,
that.
maybe under
Right.
socialism, you can just get a bow for free and it's not as big of a deal. But
I One thing I thought was interesting about the film is there's so many, like, it's when it started, and this is a bit, essentially practically the opening scene of the film. I was like, oh, this is going to be a music film. Like, it's going to
Right.
be about music. Um, but despite the fact that he's a
it kind of
cellist,
is.
I mean, there's
There we go. Here we
they
go.
he
This
doesn't
is the
talk about music
hands.
basically the
Kid
whole
gives a little
time.
squeal.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about music much, but I mean, also in the sense that I was saying, I don't think it's about the Velvet Revolution, but I mean, the big thing with the Velvet Revolution was the Prague Spring at the end when the orchestra plays. That's why the big climax of the film is him getting back to the Philharmonic.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I actually liked it. A lot of times, movies that are about music, everyone ends up waxing poetic about, their favorite piece, or like, you think about something like Mr. Holland's Opus, or Whiplash, or something where
Oh
everybody seems
yeah.
to be have really wrapped up in their music, and he's more like he is a skilled musician, but he's a very experienced skilled musician, and he doesn't, he just quietly practices and does his thing without making a big deal of it.
Yeah,
It's
And
a,
that's not like his character.
right. It's
It's
like if his
just it's just
character,
it's just his job.
yeah, if his character had a different job, we wouldn't expect, I realized that, like, because at least from an American perspective, like a person playing a cello feels like such a dramatic and romantic sort of thing to do. Like, I was expecting them to go into some kind of intricate detail, or like when he gives the kid a violin as a gift, I expected them to have like some kind of close, like intimate and beautiful, like training session or something like that. But it's very casual. I like it was part of the setting of the
Yeah, but
film.
now
But
it's just him just
yeah,
farting
And then
around with it.
right.
the
He
shot.
happens to be a cellist. Yeah.
The,
I'll cue it up for you.
yeah, no, it's great. A good lead in. But yeah, the kid is at the church. The dead won't wake. Again, they're talking about death around this child very openly. He's had to attend he attends several of
I mean,
these.
they're at a funeral, but
But he goes to several funerals with hanging along. And here we go. I was thinking he was I really thought he was going for the dress when I first saw it.
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
didn't. It's a very. He must have felt very clever when he thought of that little, and
The
rightly.
Czech Spielberg felt very clever.
Yeah, the Czech Spielberg was
Yeah,
really.
and here's Prague Metro. Here's the big scary escalator.
I mean,
Mm.
scary because of the Soviet art.
Oh no, the
Soviet art's kind
Soviet
of
art
cool.
is fine. It's actually kind of nice. It's just those things are so steep and so fast. I've heard the ones in Moscow are even more extreme. I've never been.
Yeah, this scene right here.
Okay,
From here,
so
you can leave. So he's just they just found out that the aunt or great aunt is dead, or he has. He hasn't told the child. You can play it from
Mm.
here because it'll lead right into it. I also love these things they had to wear. These booties they have to wear on their feet to go to the morgue.
And
Oh
he's gonna
yeah,
fall, right?
that's
Oh
right.
no,
He
That was in
no,
the
that's when they're
first. That was
going
when they're
in.
going in, but this is
Yeah.
when they're
yeah,
leaving, trying to explain grandma's asleep.
yeah.
And this right here, I mean, as a
Mm.
father, I was, it hit
Yeah,
home. It hit home for sure.
yeah. It's a cute little bit of filmmaking there with
Hmm.
the rack focus.
Right.
but like, it did make me think about like, wow, it is, I could see one of the joys in life, like raising kids, being a parent, like having that kind of role in a young person's life. And it did make me, reflect on that. How about you, Joe? Does it make you think about that when you watch the film nowadays?
I don't have children, but it has always crossed my mind that having children would be kind of like maybe the most interesting experiment ever. And not to be like cold or calculating about it, but just the idea of crafting another human consciousness is such a wild idea that it's always held a certain appeal. It's just never been something that came up in my life.
Well, something about having children is I've always viewed it as an extension of a romantic relationship, and the film even makes a lot of that connection because yes, he's kind of taking on this child in a vacuum, separate from a romantic relationship. But what it does and what it leads into, the pregnancy that we've been discussing of his lover, they even talk about. There's a whole conversation between them about why she says she didn't want to have a child with her husband, or she just didn't want to, but she does want to with our lead. Is
Yeah.
a very fascinating
František.
concept, and especially after they've gone through this shared experience of taking care of the child when he's sick together, seem to then want to take on a child together as lovers, kind of completing a full family in a way there, rather than just having children for the sake of having children.
Yeah.
I
It's a
like
nice
this
movie.
the opening scene here with the clouds is one of my personal favorite
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really
And
pretty.
if you recollect, they jump back to it at that very
At the
end as
end.
well.
The end, yeah. I don't know. It does remind me, Jeff. I don't know if I may share my screen. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
all of this photography. I mean, like I said, and I just did a very quick search this morning, but it's all like this aesthetic. It felt like to me.
What is that?
This is a commercial of some kind.
oh, the lighting, you mean the golden
I mean,
light?
it feels like all '90s commercials look like this.
You
Yeah,
think it
It
looks
no.
like
looks,
a Folgers commercial?
No,
yes,
look at this thing.
yes.
He is right, actually.
You
He's
have something though
crazy.
here.
You're
You have
both
And
something.
even
crazy.
the inserts. There's like a lot of insert actions that happen in the film too.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is that the things that are being portrayed are, in this case, soulless reflections of aggressive capitalism, and then, and in the film, like they're legitimately trying to express something human and beautiful, but the techniques are very like. I don't think it's a trivial observation either, because the I do think there's like I think a lot of the
I
kind
always
of
get nervous when Scott gets too close to the truth.
well, I mean, I think that this and a lot of other sort of 90s, like 80s and 90s, like best foreign film Oscar type of movies, like there's almost a subgenre there of like that the films have a quality of like a beautiful travelogue, sort of like,
Yeah.
there's a
Well,
sense that like this is an advertisement for the Czech Republic on like some very subtle level, like underneath. I do think that
Like if a
is
movie
true.
looking good is a criticism, I don't know what you're saying.
I'm not saying it's a well, like I'm
Was
not
it
saying it's
it
a
was a trendy style at the time though. Am I wrong or
there's a very sensitive sort of like, I mean, the like a,
I mean,
a
I'd be
I
Johann,
mean,
curious.
I can
And
see
Tom,
how
you
it could
might,
maybe come off as a little schmaltzy.
yeah.
I'm not even saying it's schmaltzy or bad. I'm just saying like there's a an inherent sort of a patriotic like sense that they want to portray the environments as
Well,
actively beautiful and kind of and pleasant at all times, and that's, I think that that is nice, and it's part of the niceness of the movie.
well, yeah. I
um
mean, and I think you're right, and I think they do. I mean, they do want it to be beautiful, and there is this. This is why I brought up the Jara Zimmerman thing at the beginning, uh, because there is this sense of like sort of self-deprecating patriotism. Of like, what he wants to do is like, here's this dissident character who's like terrified of the party, and because they're gonna take away this kid that they foisted on him in the first place, but now he really cares, and now they're trying to take it away, and the secret police are after him, and all of this stuff. And so it's very critical of society, but he also loves the country.
yeah, like this is, I'm just comparing it to something like some other like post-Soviet Eastern Bloc filmmaker, like you know like this is not the portrayal of like Satan Tango, or like Ashes and Diamonds or something. That's
no, it's not Satan Tango, and it's not Stolonitsyn. It's much more affectionate.
Yes, and that's part of what it is a very
Because Laszlo Krasnohorkai just he would straight up say he doesn't say. Do you ever read Satan Tango?
Is it a book as well? I didn't know it was a novel until this moment.
Oh yeah, no, it was based on a novel, and he has another novel. It's called War and War. It's one of my favorite books ever. It's fascinating. There's this archivist who lives outside of Budapest, and he finds this manuscript, and it breaks something in his soul, and he decides that he has to go to the center of the world, and he needs to put it on the internet to preserve it so that everyone else can experience it. So he goes to New York City. And that's the whole book, and it's written in this very Krasnohorkai way where you have sentences that go on for like 2 pages. But anyway, in War and War, I bring it up just because in that book he says there is no more Hungary, there are no more Hungarians, everything is lost, everything is finished. It's way more pessimistic than what you get in this kind of a
right. I would bet a nickel that you can find 1 or 2 contemporary reviews of the film that use the phrase life affirming, right? And that's the kind of film that
it is kind of a feel good movie.
It is. I'm not levying that as a criticism, but I'm just saying I think that there is in the aesthetic, there's a concerted effort to reflect that life affirming theme, right? It's like they didn't want to leave anything to chance, right?
I hate to draw the comparison, but because I don't like this film very much, but Life is Beautiful kind of plays the same game.
Thinking of the same thing, yeah.
And it's in that kind of, and that's part of this, Cinema Paradiso, like sort of genre.
Oh God, I hate Cinema
Paradiso. I know, and you have the correct,
because I'm dealing with I'm just dealing with
miserable.
Love that film, and
I detest that film.
So
I want to go back to Czech.
I'm so glad you agree. I'm so glad you agree.
One thing we can agree on, Jeff. What is your take on Cinema Paradiso? We have 100% agreement on this.
I haven't seen it in a while, nor have I wanted to rewatch it.
Well, that's the thing, right? I have no interest in going back to it.
I respect that style of cinema because usually those are the kind of movies that make more money than art films on one hand. But anyway, I want to say.
No, but that's the catastrophe of Cinema Paradiso, is that it pretends to be an art film and it isn't.
Right. Yes. And I think
whereas Kolya, I think, is actually maybe just sort of like a pop art film.
But I want to say this.
I think that's a good description.
I want to say that Kolya, looking at Czech cinema, this is far away from like Yuri Menzel's Closely Watched Trains or Czech New Wave of the 60s. This is like not referencing that kind of style or aesthetic. It is in the.
That's not true. That's not true. I think if anything, it's the end of the Czech New Wave. Because if you look at, keep in mind, it's Severak. He wrote it. He's in it, and he's been in Czech New Wave films since the 70s, and so you get some of that flavor from that. It's not the same. It is becoming more modern. The style is different. But it inherits a lot from those films.
That's a good point.
Just in terms of like the grit of the settings, like it's pretty much all on location. I don't think any of it is a set. Like I think his apartment is an actual apartment. Because they look out the window. You can see out the window.
Look out the window all the time.
Scott, you had something? Go ahead.
No, I think that kind of what Tom was talking about is that the pieces, the slice of life of it, you can think of something like The Fireman's Ball, can definitely play along with this and kind of just mischievous men, kind of thing. But it definitely, I think, like you say, Joe, you said the pop art film, like it was a film that was supposed to appeal to the masses of a Czech audience that had just recently gone through this revolution.
And it did win Best Foreign Picture.
It won Best Foreign Picture. I was going to point that out, and I was going to try to say, like, at first I was thinking about what the Czech history was. I didn't, the Czech New Wave is a fascinating take from this, but
it's Joe, pretty obscure. Me and Jeff did an episode on the White Dove, which if you want to get obscure, I mean, like that's a deep cut.
Yeah. I mean, for you, Joe, you were there. Like, were people talking about it in the now Czech Republic at that point, right?
About
When
the
you were
film.
there? Yeah. Like, what was like
It was very popular.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember, like, I was a little kid. So, like, I wasn't having, like, serious, like,
You weren't at the
critical
water
cinema
cooler.
discussions with adults.
Yeah.
But no,
I can imagine your child self doing that. So.
I just like going to the movies. I remember I also went to go see Star Wars Episode 1 around the same time.
Double feature.
Yeah. No, I remember my parents, they tortured me. They said we can take you to see Episode 1, but the thing is it's going to be the Czech dub because we couldn't get the English version. And I was like, "Oh no, I was so upset." And they're like, "We're kidding. It's just going to have subtitles. It's in English."
Czech dub would probably be better.
Like I thought I was going to have a conniption.
When you saw this film, you saw it with subtitles. It was in Czech, but also in subtitles, English subtitles.
Yeah, it was subtitled in English.
Yeah, even for a domestic audience like that, you would have English subtitles. Okay.
Yep.
A line from the movie, "We measure time in funerals." What do you guys think about that?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I do think that like things like holidays and weddings and funerals are milestones in the memory. I do. One thing that is interesting about the movie is that I was reading, no, I can't remember what, but they were talking about how, in modern life, we're very distant from death, right? Like death is very hidden. We don't experience as closely. People often like, might be gone to take, in a hospice care or something as they approach the end of life instead of dying at home and frequently like the idea of death being very kind of unpleasant is not as close to us as it has been at some times in the past.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we are very good at hiding death.
Yeah, and birth too. And and in this film, like the child just like despite the efforts to hide it from him, like he just experiences and witnesses like a lot of funerals and graves and death, and he's very resilient. And they're children they tend to be more resilient than adults sometimes give them credit for. Adults spend a lot of time trying to shelter them from the cruel realities of the world. But I remember reading Maurice Sendak was saying that he thought children instinctively just they know about that stuff. Like they don't have any illusions. Like they imagine death and dying, and they know, and it's better to make art for them that confronts those things instead of, or just that the world includes them instead of trying to create some kind of fictional world that doesn't include them.
I have a kind of a philosophical question. So nowadays, does it feel like the duration of childhood is shorter than like when you guys were kids? Or is that just a relative thing and you don't really, consider that
It's
really?
probably longer, if anything.
Yeah, that would have been my argument.
Like I'm sure, in the past, like thinking about how early people got married, like in our grandparents' generation, thinking about how, nowadays, like, between adolescence and then going to college, and like people tend to, take several years to get things figured out, or many years to get things figured out. And I think there's less pressure for people to just to kind of instantly become parents.
Well, not only is there no pressure, I mean the ability to do so. I mean, a lot of people just can't afford it.
Oh yeah, the economic realities of it for sure. And I think yeah, longer.
But no, you're right. I mean, it used to be, you get married when you're 20, you have your first kid when you're like 22.
Yeah, and you become the new generation. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe an even more correct thing to say would be like people are children, were children for as long as they are and were. Like society maybe expects us to take a little longer to become parents in the current generation, but I don't know. What a weird and complicated question now that I think about it.
Yeah, and I'm spitballing on it here. I hadn't thought a lot about it, but it feels like maybe we shield children longer and we don't let them go out and play on their own like we did. Like probably our generation was kind of like that cusp of like on probably on that tipping point of being let out to just go out and play in the neighborhood and then being kept inside more so. And so they're, younger kids are very much shielded. And yes, even marriages and having children happen later in life, but there's also the explosion of once that child gets online, an explosion of growing up and seeing, adult material, violence, language, sex, very at a very fast pace. Like it's a very huge download at that point. So I'd be curious, like, I mean, that's observationally though. That's not necessarily living it.
Is it more of a
Yeah.
question though of like
Yeah, I mean, and how
childhood
do you guys
innocence?
deal with that? I mean, you guys have children, and how do you navigate that?
My children just don't go on the computer. But
Yeah, I mean, you have a hard, like, fast rule of not allowing them there.
my so at this point, my son sometimes essentially has to use the computer for schoolwork, um, but he doesn't have any kind of free, unrestricted time to access the internet, like outside of specific needs. Um, but I mean, eventually, like he will have that, um, but I
It's
think one
terrifying.
interesting. This all makes me think one interesting thing about the movie is that, and I'm contradicting even my own past self, but like he's such an quote unquote unprepared parent, but I think in his kind of unpreparedness, he ends up doing a lot of parenting things that I think are really cool in the movie. Like he brings the child to a lot of things. Like in the movie, it seems to be because he has no other option. But I think he just ends up like the child just ends up experiencing like a lot of places, going places, hearing music, attending funerals, like and seeing a lot. And the child is like, and he also doesn't do a lot of special work to like make everything super fun for the kid. Like, I think some unprepared, inexperienced parents just like be like, here's like 10 toys and like, let's put on, he doesn't have a television, or doesn't seem to, but like, let's watch TV. Like, I know we'll play like children's games and do children's things, and everything is extremely warped around that. I use baby talk to talk to the child and like make it this like super children's world. And he pretty much just like lets the child exist in his world and experience this very authentic, like, eat the food that he's eating, do the things that he's doing, like kind of shoulder to shoulder with the child instead of like making, and the child finds the fun, like the shoebox becomes the coffin and the marionette becomes the doll, and like, the he finds he creates his own kind of world because he's given that kind of openness and freedom, and like a version of this like in modern day, like you sense that he would probably just like put Netflix on for the kid like half the time.
Or hand the kid a tablet?
Yeah, exactly. Here's my phone. Like, I
Yeah,
downloaded some
just
video games, and like that would be that.
Tom, should I bring up your notes? Were you able to touch upon everything?
I was able to delicately and without artifice weave them into the conversation because of my, sophistication. I think we basically talked about all the things I wrote down.
Joe, did we cover your notes that you had on that paper plate of yours? I can bring up the image, maybe.
There was only one last one that I wanted to bring up. If we could go back to the film.
Oh.
1:16:44. This is the portrait sequence. And then right after that is the fever dream.
So this
and I was hoping just to review a little bit of the fever sequence.
Okay. This is about an hour and 16 minutes into the film.
I can't see the time.
Oh, sorry.
On my end.
So it's 1:16:22.
I have 1:17:15.
Oh yeah. See, this is why he takes him to get his portrait, because he steals his girlfriend's leftover garment.
Yes, that's right. The underwear.
Oh, what a good shot there from the.
Isn't that fun? It's upside down in the mirror.
Oh, it's so good.
And this is what I was thinking when we were talking about portraits. This is very often how portraits are. And it can feel like, kind of like awkward and artificial. And you have like a guy holding a thing and it's a pose, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it's cute, sometimes it
Yeah,
works.
I sort of loved that little. There was but I think just in the context of the movie, there was just like a little bit of just a little hint of sadness in the portrait. I thought he would
Yeah.
have liked to have that little train.
Yeah. But then they get to go see a real train.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's better. See, authentic, experiential parenting there.
Oh yeah, and this is Petrin. This is the observation tower.
Yes, it brings up that
And it is
point,
really
Tom.
cool. I mean, Prague is very beautiful. It's a small city, but it's very old and it's very pretty.
Yeah.
Did they film like you say, Tom? Is they film everything at 5, or is it just a filter they put on the lens here?
I think they shot it. Well,
They must
I,
have.
I doubt there are any sets built for this film. Everything's probably on location, right? What do you think?
I feel like the apartment.
That's what I was saying. I don't think this is a set. I think this is a location.
But it would have been
Here's
so
here's
much
the
easier.
'90s commercial business again. These inserts.
Yeah.
The
Well, this is
Come
Folgers.
on.
We're digging into the Folgers can here again.
this is more like a
That's so harsh.
NyQuil commercial. No, that is rough. But I do the sequence is interesting. That shot's I feel like that's a Citizen Kane quote, don't you think?
I
Where
love the
they
pen, I mean, and the sound. We don't have the sound, but the sort of like the harsh like ballpoint pen on cardboard. It's a
Yeah.
very visceral sound.
So this is the child's perspective looking at the ceiling, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really didn't the camera doesn't not a super still camera in this film, but also hardly ever on a dolly. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it's almost always pivoting uh on the tripod. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, there isn't much dolly work at
right, a
all.
lot of panning and tilting, but yeah, it's hardly ever on a dolly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, see, and here I just see Svenkmeyer.
Well,
I think this is like big shout to Svenkmeyer.
I think I
Also famous, if you don't know, famous Czech filmmaker Jan Svenkmeyer.
No,
I watched
they
his
brought
adaptation of the Fall of the House of Usher the other day. 15-minute adaptation.
I think these were the storyboards from that Folgers commercial.
You're insane.
what kind of Folgers would do this to a person?
I think the music too,
And the phone
feels a little
cord,
bit
like
over
it's
the
such a
top.
nice touch. And here you have this. So like now he's hallucinating.
I love the shadows and the
yeah.
the
On
lighting
balance, I think
changes.
it's cool.
So
It's a little of a stylistic departure.
Even this is, I mean, pretty to look at. Just the nighttime stuff.
Yeah. But Joe, I think the idea here, Joe, is that like you can imagine like there's two kinds of painters, right, that try to make everything look beautiful. And on the one hand, you got like Vermeer, and on the other hand, you got Thomas Kincaid, and you gotta make sure you're Vermeer and not Thomas Kincaid. And I think this movie lands Vermeer, but in Cinema Paradiso lands Thomas Kincaid. But you gotta
Yes.
when your plan is to make
I don't
everything
know. I don't know how I feel about this. It was last year. I went with a friend of mine to the National Gallery of Art,
Mhm.
and we went to the Modern Wing, which had just reopened. But anyway, I was standing in front of this Rothko, and like I love Rothko, but I was there, and it's one of the more colorful ones, and it has like some shapes. And I was there with my friend Kevin, who's a painter, and I was like, "Don't you love this? I mean, this is I think my favorite. I love this one." And he looks at me, he says, "Yeah, that's a cheap thrill." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "What do you like?" And he takes me to this one that's just black with
I know the
one
painting.
little trace of gray at the top. And I was like, "You like this? What are you talking about?" Cheap thrill.
cheap. Well, I would to him I would say pish posh, but I know the painting you're talking about, the black one. And I do like the painting, but I don't see that. I mean Rothko, as much as I like him, there's not a. I feel like the delta between two Rothkos isn't as much as all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
These are
I
Joe's notes, by the way,
Anyway,
that we're looking at.
written on a paper plate,
I wrote them on a paper plate.
as they were meant to be
Why?
written.
I just had a paper plate at my desk and
Yeah,
my notebook was over there and I started watching the movie. I wanted to make sure that I had, watched the movie. I wanted to do my homework. And
Scott, what did you write your notes on?
the stakes are not that high. I'll just write them on a paper plate.
I think more so, I'm more curious about Joe, do you have a specific microphone brush that you pulled out
I
just
was
now?
very interested
And
Oh
in
no,
used, like,
I'm sorry. I noticed I had a little bit of dust on it and it was
but the
annoying me.
brush, was it a
I thought
bow?
that this was in like
Was
an
it
ASMR kind of a thing going.
Oh, it could be.
is it specific for the microphone?
It looks like a shaving brush.
It is actually.
Oh.
And do you keep it
I mostly use
specifically
it for my
your
keyboard.
microphone?
Oh, interesting.
It gets dusty.
fastidious. Yeah.
No one wants a dusty keyboard.
No, no, indeed.
These are yours, Tom.
Yes, my notes. The only thing I feel like in my notes that I haven't mentioned that I do want to mention is I mentioned at the 24 minutes in, you don't have to go to the scene, but because we talked about it, but when he is at the reception or the wedding thing, and he's just talking about this poor woman, and um, I was at that point, I didn't know if the movie thought this dude was cool or really uncool. Like I couldn't tell if the movie liked him and like thought that he was like a kind of charming, rakish sort of a Casanova, or if the movie thought this guy's like a pathetic old lech. And I was
Well, it's the
really
game it plays, right? I mean, especially in the beginning.
right. It turns out that the answer is it's not or, it's and. Like
Yeah.
that is the one of the questions that the movie is dealing with. It's not like I was unsure because the movie was fine with me being unsure, and that suited it. That was the right answer. But um, it turns out it's like he's a little bit of a Casanova and kind of a pathetic old lech, and he's eventually that's like part of the journey of the film. And that's probably his low point. Like honestly, is like when he's drinking at this wedding and like you know can't believe his luck because he's getting a fat payday and is enjoying his kind of moment of power to sort of like intentionally make people uncomfortable. And then it's kind of like a, and then like pretty much right after that scene, he's humbled by kind of having the rug pulled out from under him. But that was it was an interesting moment, I thought.
What does the film say about men, or what does it try to say about men, or comment?
It's for certainly from a very male perspective. Like there's some extremely male gaze photography going on throughout the film, and um, and it's pretty much just about men. Like the women characters are essentially kind of there in little bits and bobs to either be attracted to the lead character or to help the lead character, or not help him, as the case might be. And it's about a boy and it's about a man. I don't know that it um I don't know what it says broadly, but I think it is a film about I mean, maybe the male capacity for parental love. Like the film would be very different if he had like a woman partner that was there. You almost feel like he would just pawn everything off on her. I think it's because he's alone that he's able to access that part of himself. I mean, he tries to pawn things off on the women characters in his life as much as possible early in the film.
What about the
Yeah,
scene
and,
where
and I guess he kind of does. I mean, like with the Clara character, she helps him out when Kolya gets sick. And there's the other character who he calls up to tell him stories like in Russian on the phone.
That's true. Yes.
He does like outsource some of these things to the women in his life.
Yeah, I guess in that sense that does speak to how unprepared.
But it's not really like that. Outsourcing makes it sound bad. I mean, that's just him asking for help, and I think that's actually an act of maturity.
For sure, especially in the part of the illness. He's you sense that he's really like facing himself. Like he's like, I just can't handle it. Like, and it's important enough that I'm seeking help from kind of avenue.
Yeah,
Well, and
by any
he's-
means necessary.
I mean, it might be a gender stereotype, but he's reaching out to women to help with the child's sickness, to help with his education, with like being read a child's book, for kindness, while he's kind of providing, access to the realities of life and death and political, pressures that he's dealing with, and
Yeah.
so
I don't know if he's doing it
is.
intentionally, but
What's that?
I don't know if he's doing any of that on purpose, but
No, not intentionally, but that is what he is doing,
Yeah.
and kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily a commentary on that men should provide this for children and women should
Yeah.
provide this for what children, but I think it's, saying that you do need multiple perspectives to give to the child.
I think he takes on like when he buys the child shoes, and things like that.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
part's
that,
really sweet, I think.
right? When he gets the portrait taken and he buys the shoes is when I feel like he's really coming into his own as a parent. Where he's like especially the portrait, which is it's not a necessity. He's not like, I guess technically you need to eat something. Here's some food. Like he's starting to really like at that moment you feel like, okay, you're in it for the long haul, right? Like you've got the portrait, you're buying the clothes, he's starting to accept that this is his role and think about all the different needs that the child has.
Yeah.
Part of it must be instinctual, though, on like a human level, that he just intuitively knows kind of like what to try and how to comfort the kid, how to take care of the kid, how to make him feel more, in a stable environment.
Yeah, well, I mean, humans, we've been having kids a long time, as long as we've been doing anything. You know, I remember when I was thinking about having children, I was talking to a friend, and I was like, well, like I think I'll just wait until like I got everything really like perfect, and ready. And he's like, well, then you're never gonna have kids. Like, that time will never come, when you feel like totally ready and everything is perfect.
Scott, did you have any other notes from your things that you jotted down or wanted to say?
No, I feel I've covered a lot of things that I was hoping to cover for sure.
Joe, do we cover the story? Are you satisfied now with the plot points?
Yeah, no, I think we actually did a pretty good job. I had one little note about the metro station where he finally finds Kolya when he gets lost. It used to be called Moskevska, Moscow Station. It's now called Ando, which is how I know it. Like I saw it watching it, like I recognized it, but I was like, oh, like but they do some set dressing and they use the old name.
Yeah.
But no, other than that, I think we did the whole story.
Much
a couple
like
of
the
the
film,
frames
I think.
that I thought we got to. We talked about Radio Free Europe. We talked about Yara Timmerman. We talked about Severak. I'm well satisfied.
Much like the film, I have some critiques of our efforts, but over time I will grow to appreciate what we have accomplished here today.